I know this movie came out late, or this review is coming out late. I shouldn't say the movie came out late. The movie came out right where it was supposed to come out in July, and I'm talking about the movie Twisters, starring Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones. If you're not familiar, this is the sequel to the 1996 film Twister with Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, I want to say. I was 7 years old when this original movie came out, and this was the first movie. The reason I wanted to talk about it was this is the first movie that I remember really having an impact on my outside life after seeing it. Not Twisters, but the original Twister. I was young. I was 7, probably 8, 9 by the time I saw it on TV when it was in syndication. And I remember vividly the cow from the original film being swept across by a gigantic twister, and forever imprinted in my brain this idea that, oh man, this could be powerful. I don't want to live in the Midwest, right? And I don't know how you prove this. I don't know how you try to find information on this, but I imagine after seeing movies like this, maybe tourism goes down for places like Oklahoma, places like Nebraska, where you might be driving down the plains and all of a sudden you see those winds pick up and you're like, oh crap, I hope this isn't a Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt moment. That film had such a big impact on me when I was younger. Gave me a little bit of a healthy fear of a tornado, right? As you probably should have, right? You probably shouldn't be running full-fledged into a tornado, but this new movie is exactly what that does. The new movie Twisters came out in July. Let me fade to the trailer here. And I don't think anybody has any question about what this film is. I mean, does anybody? We've seen plenty of movies that are about the destruction of the world over the last 10 years. And whether it be The Day After Tomorrow, whether it be 2012, whether it be about these gigantic weather seismic events. And I think the superhero movie doesn't help these movies' causes in any way, too, because those are all about seismic events that are happening in the destruction of the world. But this movie's kind of interesting because it kind of bucks a little bit of current trends. This movie follows basically Daisy Edgar Jones plays a tornado chaser named Kate, who kind of runs into a hairy situation earlier on in her career, which kind of retires her from the act of chasing tornadoes. And eventually, when she gets pulled out of the retirement, she meets a kind of rugged YouTuber tornado chaser, which is played by Glenn Powell. And together, they are kind of, adversaries trying to chase the tornadoes and trying to cover this thing. And Kate is really kind of committed to trying to figure out how these tornadoes work and maybe how they can dispel them before they cause massive destruction for the towns. It kind of follows a similar plot to the original Twister, right? Like if someone was to actually say this is a reboot, right? I mean, there's not a lot that actually differs from the original plot of Twisters. And one would also argue, too, well, when you're talking about a tornado movie, how different can they actually be, right? Had you not seen the original one in 1996, it's been, 30 years at this point. Hey, this is your entry point to something that could be sequelized, right? I enjoyed it. I actually think this was a nice film to watch. I didn't watch it in theaters. I watched it on demand for $20. I love when movies are doing that now. I'm increasingly, and we've talked about this on the podcast a lot, I'm increasingly falling out of love with going to the movies just because of how expensive it gets. And so for $20, if I want to see a mainstream film, and I don't have to wait 3 or 4 months to see it, I love that. So I love that they gave you the option to do that. They didn't force you to go into the theater. The plot is a little bit kind of two-dimensional. If I was giving any kind of criticism for this film, it would just be that the film is a little bit too. The film is a little bit too two-dimensional when it comes to the characters, and it doesn't exactly blow you away in terms of plot development or anything like that. Or character development. They all seem a little bit too face value when I was watching the film. A lot of things happen quickly. People get pushed into situations very, very quick. There's not a lot of development here. It's a shorter-esque movie. It's like 2 hours long or something like that. And but they kind of push you along, and it's not the deepest thing. And I don't know whether my expectation about character development has changed since now being confronted with television series that go episodes long, that they have the length and they have the availability and the runway to really develop characters deeply. And I'm talking about like things like Breaking Bad, right? Game of Thrones, right? Like these characters so intimately by the time you're done with the series or you're halfway done the series that sometimes when you pull back and you watch a movie, you start kind of thinking, this is all happening so fast. But they only have 2 hours, right? So they have to make these things move quickly. And I guess what I'm saying is that some of the character relationships aren't that earned, right? They're just kind of surface level, and they're really just to provide a foil to basically the big visual effect that's going to happen. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing pulling back. I saw this movie about a week ago, so I had a lot of time to kind of think about why didn't this thing work in my mind as well as I wanted it to work. Glenn Powell plays a YouTuber tornado chaser as well, which is which is exactly what this channel is here. I see no difference between my channel and his fictional one. I like the I like the kind of two-dimensional character they have and the joke that they're playing, because they are like rowdy. They're shooting fireworks into tornadoes. They are the thing that everyone, I think, assumes about YouTubers online, just put in a movie. They also remind me too of a lot of like video trends that like I've seen on Instagram and I've seen on TikTok. I've seen that are in your face kind of filming without your consent kind of thing, filming for a reaction kind of stuff. I liked seeing that dramatized on film. It reminded me how much I hate those videos online. I just think that they're annoying, and they're just they remind me of Candid Camera. Do you guys remember that show, Candid Camera? There was like an old show that at least I watched in the 90s. I think it actually had a long, long history before I watched it, going back to the 70s or something like that. But Candid Camera would basically film people, and they'd play pranks on customers or people in normal situations, and just to see what their reaction was like, only to at some point when they were officially fed up, they would pop out and say, "Smile, you're on Candid Camera," which to me is not a reward enough to make up for the pain and uncomfort that I just suffered at the hands of Candid Camera. Like, you can't put someone through that much misery just to make up for it with, "Smile, you're on Candid Camera." Candid Camera, like, I just feel like that wouldn't happen in today's society. I mean, they tried it with Punk'd, right, with Ashton Kutcher, the prank show, and I just feel like people are so on edge that it's like, nah, I don't want to be on camera. There's too many of that stuff. You're always on camera these days, so everyone's not smiling because everyone's filmed regardless of wherever you go, right? There's cameras everywhere, and so I just don't feel like that would work anymore. People would just get annoyed and move on, and film you filming them, and get even more pissed. So, anyways, besides going down the rabbit hole of why the science of Candid Camera didn't work, they do dramatize a kind of rough and tumble YouTuber that Glenn Powell plays. He plays it pretty well. They make you kind of feel the discomfort that you might feel if you were in that situation. So he does a good job portraying that. And one of the things that this movie did kind of get into the news or get into the zeitgeist was about the relationship between Daisy Edgar Jones' character and Glenn Powell's character, and about how there wasn't a lot of it was like a surface level relationship that kind of was playing around with, okay, are they going to fall in love? Are they not going to fall in love? But the film never actually culminates in the love interest section of the film, right? When I took a film studies class, I remember them saying that every single narrative that you watch, right, has the main point of the movie, but they also have a love story tied within it, right? If you watch anything, I mean, even Star Wars, right? Star Wars is basically the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell to like beat by beat. But even that has the love story of Han and Leia kind of weaved in between it. And the reason that they would always say that the love story is important is because it provides that level of investment that humans, people, viewers want to see when they're watching a movie. In this film, it is interesting because it kind of bucks the trend of that, where they kind of flirt with a relationship happening between the two main characters, but it never pays off. And according to the director, this movie was directed by, let me see if I can get those notes back up, Lee Isaac Chung. They opted kind of against making the love interest and the love story kind of pay off in this film. A lot of people were talking about that there's no, like, spoiler alert, there's no kiss at the end of this film. And when, the two main characters finally, hit their resolve, this is not a spoiler for the movie, they just kind of walk off screen. and it's a little bit deflating. I guess, like, I never thought that, like, oh yeah, this is happy endings. This is how happy endings work. You feel that kind of fulfillment. You walk out of a film, you feel better because of the happy ending, because of that love interest storyline that is written into everything, is that you want that to happen, right? And they had some kind of interesting quotes. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. There's a article that's written all about this by Ryan Gajewski. And they say, quote, "Indeed, the film's team did opt to shelve such a scene." And the scene that they're talking about is like a kissing scene, some sort of payoff. They said Chung actually filmed a kiss between Powell and Edgar Jones with footage of the lip lock having made the rounds on social media. Though it was not in the finished film, the two stars have said this was a result of a note given by executive producer Steven Spielberg, and both said the decision made sense to them. Chung himself recently said that scrapping the kiss was a result of an evolving filmgoer preference. Quote, "I feel like audiences are in a different place now in terms of wanting a kiss or not wanting a kiss," end quote. The director told Entertainment Weekly, quote, "I actually tried the kiss and it was very polarizing, and it's not because of the performance of the kiss." In the case of Twisters, Powell has also said he saw the kiss omission as helping to frame Kate's self-actualization as not hinging on having a significant other by her side, which is actually, I think, the most important quote of this thing, is that there are some stories that do, if they focus on a female lead, that tend to still kind of fall into that tropey damsel in distress kind of thing, which I think is what Glenn Powell is trying to kind of frame here in his quote, saying, hey, she's a person. She doesn't need X, Y, and Z to keep on progressing. She is evolving as a character herself. It's interesting. I never thought about the idea of a filmgoer preference having changed and having to, you'd think it would go the other way and it would get more, they'd want to see more and more and more. It seems like cinema has done that. But to be honest, I think with, they do kind of start to explore, like with series being provocative in the way that they are, you see sometimes way too much on television, and it makes things kind of impossible to watch with your family. And you start kind of researching things a little bit more when you want to watch anything, because everyone wants to avoid that embarrassing moment of like, okay, Grandpa, hide your eyes. This is going to be more than you've ever seen of the human anatomy. So by them even bucking the kiss at this point is a complete rebuff of saying, hey, we don't need this for a film to survive. We can survive on story alone. And we don't need that love interest that everybody says you need in cinema. I thought that was kind of interesting from this film. The film is funny. The film does have a compelling story. They do have a mission that they're trying to accomplish. It's very evocative. The visuals are very, very good. It does kind of take you to a place where you're thinking about people who do experience not devastating tornadoes quite like this one, but I mean like the movie twisters, but devastation on the same level in terms of tornadoes that happen in real life. It makes you think about all that stuff, and it makes you think about what people do, right, and how people even survive in that thing. So it does have a lasting effect that isn't just as trivial as the love interest between two fictional characters. So the movie does move you in other ways, and I think by leaving this thing out, it opens the door for movies to go, hey, well, how about we make a movie that doesn't have a love interest? Maybe that's next, right? What are some things that we always assume need to happen in movies that don't need to happen anymore? Maybe no one cares anymore about that kind of stuff. And I think that's what they were trying to kind of do. I think it's interesting that they tried it once, and they tried this scene once, and they said it was polarizing. Chung, the director, said, quote, "I actually tried the kiss, and it was very polarizing." You wonder if that is a result of the script or them not focusing enough time on the relationship of the characters so it didn't seem earned. That's what I want to know. Anyways, this was more deep than I ever thought Twisters was going to put me. In a landscape of movies that have come out that have been very, very successful, Deadpool, It Ends With Us, topping the charts once again. This was an interesting viewing. It made me think a lot more about the movie than I ever thought I was going to. I really only wanted to go to the movie to try to get over my fear of tornadoes. That did not happen. It got worse. But go see this movie. This movie is a very good movie. It's a popcorn flick, or it's a easy film to watch, and you're gonna have fun with it. They make it comical. They have good lines in it. Glenn Powell is obviously, it's the summer of Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell, I believe, is in every movie from here on out. Every movie I review, at least, it feels like Glenn Powell has some sort of hand in it. But go see this movie. It's a very, very good movie. I'd give it good reviews. I had a lot of fun watching it, and it made me think, and which is very, very surprising. So if you did miss it, go